Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryant and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 103. He's Dave Bryant. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being here this Monday, Steelers Nation. Dave, we are just flying through these podcasts here. So much draft reaction. I was exhausted last night. I went to bed. I'm sure you didn't because I know that's not a thing that you do. But happy to be back and happy to talk draft with you.
Yeah, look, I pulled an all-nighter, Saturday night. After was it Saturday night? I'm losing track of the days. I can't even remember now. It was either Friday or Saturday.
After day 3 of the draft?
After day two. So that would have been Friday night. Pulled an all-nighter there, catching up on some tape and all like that. And then I told myself I'm try to knock off early after the final day of the draft. Well, that didn't happen. I ended up staying up till past midnight on that one there. And last night I would have been a little bit earlier there, not too much, but look, I mean, yesterday technically should be a holiday. It should be like it should be National Tape Watching Day, because that's what I did most of the day, and that's what I'll continue to do really much of this the rest of this week here, as to try to get up to speed on all the new Steelers, and then of course look at a few other guys that ended up getting drafted around the league as well too.
Just as a heads up, for this week, we'll do Monday, obviously today's show, and then probably wait till Friday's show, and then go back to Tuesday, Thursday for the foreseeable future. So just a heads up, unlikely to have a Wednesday show unless some sort of major breaking news happens. It feels like we need to talk about it. Give us some more time to watch some of these guys, especially the UDFAs that I haven't really gotten a chance to check out. You mentioned guys that have become Steelers. Unfortunately, there are 3 players who are no longer Steelers, with the team signing 10 undrafted free agents. They had to make 3 cuts to get down to their roster size and limit of 90 for the offseason. The team announced those 3 cuts yesterday. They are running back Darren Hall, wide receiver Jamal Custis, and safety Trey Matthews. So Hall, Custis, and Matthews all released. Custis, they were all signed to futures contracts, remembering things correctly. Hall was on the practice squad on and off a little bit last season, and those 3 guys are now on the street.
Yeah, Custis and Matthews, I think, even ended last season on the practice squad, and I think immediately signed to futures contract. Hall had been bounced on and off of the practice squad, but it didn't take him long to find his way back during the offseason onto the roster. And this kind of thing happens every year. You come out of draft and you find the undrafted guys that you want, and usually a couple, 2, 3, 4 guys usually have to go after the dust settles there. So that's what has happened there. Obviously, no rookie minicamp coming up, so probably the 90 that they have right now, barring them finding maybe another undrafted guy that they might like. This is probably going to be your 90 for at least a little while here.
Probably. Today does mark the first day of the Steelers' virtual offseason. Whatever exactly that entails, I'm not sure. They could, of course, still sign a free agent, reevaluate the roster, any remaining veteran free agents that are still on the street, though. We'll see what happens there. But, yeah, essentially, this is the 90, no rookie minicamp, no rookie tryouts, which is a bummer for me because I always root for those guys. And Pittsburgh likes to sign those guys, including Two-Star Skipper and Duck Hodges last year. Unfortunately, it seems like there won't be any sort of rookie tryouts this year.
Right. And I think later today marks the end of the the main phase of free agency as well. And also that means that any unrestricted guys from other teams that have not signed yet, if they sign with other teams, they no longer count against the compensatory formula as well. So it's a very important day as far as that goes when it comes to unrestricted free agents and impact on the compensatory draft pick formula.
Okay, that's really valuable information. And yeah, probably going to see some action there. I have an article this morning, and I don't want to get into this too much right now. We're talking about how I still would not be opposed to them bringing in another nose tackle, some safety depth, 2 positions that technically they addressed on day 3 of the draft with Brooks and Davis, but guys that aren't going to make an impact on defense this year or unlikely to do so. So I would prefer to see some sort of veteran depth there brought in.
Yeah, we'll see. It doesn't look like it. Look like teams, we'll see how many more cuts happen immediately after the draft around the league. I know there's been a few already, but I don't think unless anything major happens right now with a guy around the league somewhere, more of a veteran nose tackle. I could see the Steelers going that route if one came available on the cheap, but it would have to be cheap.
Absolutely. We'll keep you posted if any names come across the wire, but I have not seen anything since. One thing we haven't talked about draft-wise, to pivot back to that, we haven't talked about Colbert's and Tomlin's reaction post-draft in their virtual press conference after all the picks were made. I don't know if you have a specific way you want to start this, Dave. I do want to at least note that they talked about how Kevin Dotson wasn't invited to the Combine, their 4th-round pick this year, but they felt comfortable with him because he's at the Shrine Game. They had coaches there, and they wanted him at the Combine. They voted for him to be one of the participants there. Obviously, other teams didn't feel that way, but they have had, been high on Kevin Dotson this whole time. Yeah,
it makes you wonder what it is. I mean, the guy played 50-something games, and part of the Bayou Bullies tandem there. Why
AP All-American? Like, how do you not make?
I know. I'm curious to know how that all went down, and why so many teams maybe it was just an oversight to them not checking a box or something like that. It really is weird though, because the more you get into his tape, the more you understand that this guy, probably is or was one of the top interior offensive linemen in this year's class and all. So I guess with him not going to the Combine, and then with the way this offseason has played out with the pandemic and all, that's probably what resulted in him kind of, quote unquote, I guess, slipping, if you will, right. even if that's what was the case with him. But once again, a guy that the further you get into his tape, the more excited you get about him.
Yeah, it's really kind of the same stuff we talked about before. It's just, again, to go back to the reality how he wasn't at the Combine. And as you said, it's not – I mean, I know he played at Louisiana Lafayette, but that's not a D3 school, and he was playing next to a dude that was a second-round pick. So everyone was watching Robert Hunt, the right tackle, and Dawson is right there doing the same. So very strange. But, yeah, as I said, it's rare for the Steelers to go the non-Combine route, especially that high, the highest draft pick in the Tomlin era, maybe even the whole Colbert era. I might have to research that to be drafted and not invited to the Combine, but that just shows you how much they like this kid.
Absolutely.
Anything else that they were asked about or talked about that kind of caught your attention? I'm trying to scroll through the transcript here. Kevin Colbert called Antoine Brooks kind of half linebacker, half safety, trying to encapsulate the versatility needed in today's NFL.
Kind of like a motor, half man, half motorcycle. Those commercials crack me up, especially the one where the guy, the motor turns around and says, "The question is, do you wish you were, or do you regret not being a motor?" And the guy in the truck's just looking straight ahead. He kind of whispers to himself, "I do."
Okay.
You got to watch those. I think they're Progressive commercials. But that's the first thing. Half this, half that. Look, this is kind of the trend, that we're seeing across the NFL coming out of college here. And once again, when you're talking about this kid, you're talking about a kid that better nearer the line of scrimmage than further away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. His calling card is playing closer to the line, getting downhill, thumping against the run. You put him in space, ask him to cover. That's where you're going to expose some of the hip stiffness and some of the lack of foot speed overall with that 4.6 40 coming into play. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy that honestly, and the more I think about it, the more I watch him, the more I envision maybe at some point making a full-time switch to linebacker.
That would be interesting there because we've talked about what this team has addressed. What didn't they address, really? That they probably could have addressed at some point, even if it be more of a special teams kind of like guy. We talked a little bit about Weaver, Evan Weaver during this process. Who were some of the other kind of later round off the ball inside linebacker prospects that we talked about? Muse, even though he comes from college as a safety kind of guy. Maybe that's kind of the trend that we're going to get to now. across the NFL in some of these kind of base packages, if you will. Even some of the well, technically really all packages there is a guy that you can do multiple things with. If you're in a base defense, can you leave him on the field in a Steelers situation and be a run and hit inside linebacker? If you're in if you're in a sub package, can he defend? Can he cover some of these backs out of the backfield and things such as that? So maybe that kind of position being more hybrid now than ever before. So it'll be interesting to see his path moving forward. Obviously, I don't think either one of us expect Brooks to hit the ground runner as a starter here, but it's going to be entirely up to him how quickly he progresses and how he performs. I would think maybe at some point during the season we could see him in some sort of money backer type role, right?
I think that's pushing it. Obviously, injuries are going to dictate everything. If everyone's healthy, I can't see the role, but he can start in special teams. Like I think he can do that.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Well, several of these guys, several of these guys should be able to do that. But I mean, can they? Look, I mean, Marcus Allen didn't pan out, right? A guy that we thought maybe could kind of play that role there. And now they have another one in Brooks here that we'll have to see. Can he become kind of a poor man's Mark Barron, and get snaps as early as his rookie season? Look, we don't think any of that's going to happen, obviously, in the first half of the season. Then also you got guys like Gilbert. If anything, this draft played out great for Ulysses Gilbert, right?
Yeah, you talk about big winners of the draft. It was Big Dan, UG3. Those are probably the top two. Maybe even James Conner, technically. They didn't draft a franchise running back at the top.
And you hate to use the term red shirt, year when it comes to a lot of these rookies, but I mean that's going to end up being the case with a lot of these draft picks, or most of them, because of the sheer fact, the way the offseason program's going or is likely to go. They're not going to get any. They're going to show up at training camp, assuming training camp even starts out on time, with their heads spinning. Because
absolutely.
You haven't had any of those installs. Everything. It's one thing to do it virtual. It's one thing to walk it through on the field.
Oh yeah, two different things. Absolutely. One overall theme that I have of this draft is just, and I mentioned this the other day, an edgy class, just guys that play with an edge, with a backstory of someone that overcame, a terrible injury in the case of Antoine Brooks Jr., just somebody that, self-made man. Kevin Dotson, I think, would use that exact phrase, self-made man. And Alex Highsmith was a walk-on at Charlotte and ends up being a day 2 draft pick. And I think Tomlin was kind of asked about that in regards to at least Claypool and kind of his physicality, and Tomlin said, quote, "It's just a trait we value organizationally. I think it's a trait. Physicality is a brand of ball that we want to play regardless of position. We believe it's an asset for victory for us, and so when you can get some wideouts to display that trait, that's exciting." And Claypool, whether he was contributing on special teams or doing things with the ball in his hand or as a blocker, displayed those traits at ND. I think you can apply that with a lot of guys. I think that obviously Dotson's as physical as they come. Brooks is a heavy hitter. Highsmith, again, edgy kind of dude. Brooks with the injury history, overcoming those odds and fighting back. So I just think there's an edge to this class that's going to have them hungry for camp.
Yeah, hopefully so. And look, I mean, we talked about kind of going more of a safer route this year with these picks, and them being, outside of McFarland, who they already knew a lot about, with them being the lone underclassman. It does feel like a safe, edgy, physical kind of class here. And one last thing on Brooks. Kevin had mentioned that Brooks is kind of half safety, half linebacker, which is perfect in today's NFL. Is he capable of assuming that role that Mark Barron played alongside Devin? And Mike Tomlin said, I think there's a lot of guys in today's game that fit that bill, and it becomes easier and easier to forecast those capabilities because you see them do it on the college field. And as Kevin mentioned, you saw a lot of those things on his Big Ten tape, and so it made it easy to potentially forecast his abilities to do those things. We're excited about him as a safety, period. We're excited about him as a sub-package player, period. We're excited about maybe what he could bring to us as a special teamer as well. That 220-pound body is very useful in today's game for the reasons that we've been talking about. So that 220-pound body that you have, Alex, it's you. You're what, 120?
I was going to say, add about another 100, and I'm there.
Yeah, well, I don't know, what is your body useful for in today's game?
I can be the football.
Taking notes.
Practicing with, yeah. Yeah, I'm the water boy. But yeah, I mean,
look, you talk about the physicality there. I went special teams tape surfing yesterday. Part of kind of looking at some of these top guys there. Claypool and you. What was the stat that you had right after the draft on or right?
25 tackles in his career at ND. A lot of tackles.
A lot of tackles, and I went all the way back to his freshman year. And that gift that I use all the time of Todd Haley in a Chiefs hat jumping up and down and getting excited. I imagine that being Danny Smith because Claypool, boy, you even going back, like I said, as far back as his freshman tape, him working as a gunner, him working on the kickoff coverage team, a couple of times in a couple of those games, even during his freshman season, a couple of special teams tackles there. One of them, in fact, I think against Syracuse it was. I didn't like the way he played it as a gunner on the outside. I thought he kind of overran it on the outside. But anyway, the punt returner got it and started working his way up up Claypool's side of the field. Claypool managed to work himself back all the way back through the trash, and it ended up being a long return. I think went down inside the red zone, Notre Dame's red zone. But Claypool ran all that way down the field, and had he not done that, the kid would have scored on the punt return there. So it's just that kind of effort that you see out of him. So, without a doubt, some way, some form. Now, I don't know if Claypool's going to be, a four-phase special teamer to start out with, playing on return teams, kickoff or punt return team. But I'm fairly confident that he'll be on the kickoff coverage unit and the punt coverage unit.
Yeah. No, I can see him as a day one gunner because, again, you just lost Johnny Holton, who, for all his warts as a receiver, and there were many, was a really good gunner last year, could cover a lot of ground, was that long strider, speedy kind of guy in that similar mold to Claypool, though Claypool's obviously infinitely better. Yeah, I could see Claypool as a gunner, probably kick return team as a body. It's kind of that old wedge, not that they can wedge anymore, but in that spot, one guy up from the return guy to be that big 240-pounder blocking and leading the way for a kick return game that needs all the help it can get. So certainly, I mean, for Claypool year one, I'm seeing red zone, just specific packages for him in short yardage situations and special teams. I think he can do both of that right away.
Yeah, he's one guy on offense right out of the chute that we talked about the other day. If you can get him singled up, here's the thing right now when you look with Ben coming back and the additions of Eric Ebron, obviously Juju back healthy.
Hopefully Vance gets healthy.
Vance, you should be able to create a lot of matchup problems, especially if Matt Canada's fingerprints get on this thing a little bit with some of these pre-draft shifts and motions. If you can, and look, that stuff's going to be kind of harder probably to put in on the fly this year with no virtual. I mean, with this being a virtual offseason and all. But even so, as the season progresses, you've got enough kind of weapons there, especially in the red zone, where you should be able to create. You should be able to get a certain matchup, or have come out of that a potential matchup that you like, whether it be Eric Ebron on a safety, whether it be Claypool one-on-one on the outside against maybe an undersized corner, whether it be Juju in the slot against a nickel, those kind of things. So you've got enough weapons now, and once again, assuming Ben stays healthy, the offense gets entirely better in 2020 just by the return of Ben Roethlisberger alone. And that cannot be stated enough, even when it comes to the running game here. So now you've got another weapon or two in this offense that they should – there's no reason for this team not to be able to move the football.
Yeah, I mean, there's every reason to get back to something much closer to 2018 levels in 2019, and for me, that's obviously including the red zone offense, which was 32nd in the NFL last year after being first in 2018. Now, again, not having Ben is the number reason why that number tanked so much, but there were certainly other issues as well. So you get Ben back, you add Ebron, you add Claypool. I mean, this should be, to me, a top 5 red zone offense in 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. It shouldn't. Dank sure shouldn't be at the bottom like it was last year.
Mm-hmm, that's for sure. They were also asked about Tomlin and Colbert were about the familiarity, and again, I think that was kind of a theme of this class too. And Colbert semi downplayed it, but I still think there's merit in the thought and the argument at least that they drafted a lot of guys that they knew. Whether that was seeing Claypool up in person at the Senior Bowl, they drafted 5 seniors overall and only 1 underclassman, which is pretty rare for them to do. Obviously, they had inside information with Canada on Brooks and McFarland, whether that's coaching Alex Smith at the Shrine game, and those kinds of things. So I think just having that inside information and seeing some of those guys up close in person, either themselves or assistant coaches or coaches that they hired this year, played a role in making them feel more comfortable in a year where information was obviously a lot more scarce than it would be in a normal draft class.
I come out of every draft, at least the last 3 or 4 years, thinking, man, I envision their target list being a lot smaller than what they kind of let on.
You think?
Yeah, I think when they, Kevin Colbert every year in a normal press conference says we have, 150. What does he normally say?
Like 137 this year, 147.
Of guys that they've identified, blah blah blah, and all like that. And I agree, those guys are probably on a master list of some sort that they have put together. But I really feel that they've probably in each round ahead of the draft have probably about 6 guys circled.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I kind of envision it, with them. And, they just go through and look, they don't give a crap about what we think about positional value. And they've proven that over the years. Not that even means anything. A player's positional value in the draft is where he's drafted.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. And in a year like this, boards didn't matter. Everyone's all over the place. Who cares?
Right.
Especially on day 3, you just pick the guys you like.
Right, but I sure have a feeling, especially after this year's draft, when you look at the Maryland kids and when you look at, kids like, look, I mean, they were at that Notre Dame. Who I know Colbert were both Colbert and Tomlin at the pro day last year, Notre Dame? I think they were, weren't they?
I can look it up. Obviously, at least one of them were.
I know Colbert was. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it might have just been Colbert because maybe Tomlin was elsewhere, if I'm remembering things correctly. But let me look up the Pro Day tracker from last year. But yeah, they were there to see because Notre Dame always has a ton. Yeah, it was Colbert. No, Tomlin. It was Colbert, Terrell Austin, Phil Kryler, college scouting director, and Dan Rooney Jr., who's the player personnel director. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously they had Love, Boykin, Tranquill, Jerry Tillery. I mean, they had a lot of guys to watch last year.
But anyway, yeah, I come out of these last couple of drafts feeling it. It just feels like they have about 6 guys targeted in about each round. And in other words, the board it might be massive overall, but I really think that they have a guy. It goes back to what Kevin Colbert says, guys they want. And it really feels like this year's class once again. Outside of maybe McFarland, that was kind of still kind of a little bit of a head scratch there, but guys that they wanted. They liked talking to those Davis. They probably would have been, fine taking either one of those Davis brothers,
I mean, I would say McFarland was, again, just to go back to the inside information where they had Matt Canada, somebody who coached that guy and or at least was part of the same team as Antoine Brooks. So they knew about those guys more, and that made them more comfortable in a year where you have that inside information as opposed to just watching the tape, talking to the guy for 15 minutes at Indy, and then hoping that it makes sense. So I think you lean on those even if they kind of downplayed the idea.
All right, what else did Colbert and Tomlin say so we can wrap up that segment there?
Last question was someone asking, not drafting a tackle this year, and the question was, do Zach Banner and Okorafor give you confidence that you needed to not pursue more of a tackle alignment? And Tomlin flat out said yes, they were confident in having Banner and Okorafor, and that's why they did not draft a tackle.
What do you think? Give me a percentage chance that Dotson ends up cracking this lineup right from the start, and then Filer opening remaining at right tackle.
I'm not going to put it at 0, but it's going to be low because there's still even, you could argue, Wisniewski would be the left guard just because he's a veteran guy who's experienced out of the gate. I think, again, Dotson can start. I really like that pick. It might be my favorite pick of the draft. I'll put it at 10% because a lot has to happen, I think, for that to be the case.
Right. The funny thing is, too, Dotson, not that we ever want to have to see it, but he is semi-tackle capable, I think, going back to
Is he?
I think, high school.
Has he? I don't think he's going to play tackle. Has he played left guard before at Louisiana Lafayette?
I did not see it. I tried to go all the way back and even looking at game books and participation charts and stuff like that. I haven't seen it yet. If he has, he didn't. If he did, he didn't do it much at all.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, I think high school days. I think he may have played. I think right tackle.
Okay, well, I think he's going to be a guard at the NFL, and obviously you got to be versatile. And
now you don't think I'm seriously suggesting him playing tackle, do you?
I mean, I don't know. You just keep saying play right tackle. I don't think.
No, I said it's not something we would ever want to see.
Okay.
But he does. He does have. He has played the position before.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just think about the left guard standpoint of things. Obviously, it's not the biggest transition in the world, but it is flipping your footwork, your punch, everything is opposite. So there's going to be a transition there, and not having the offseason program is going to kind of put him behind if they want to play him at left guard. So that's the one word with Dotson is that he's kind of static. It's just the right guard, and obviously the Castro's not going anywhere, and Dotson's going to have to play left guard if he's going to play anywhere, and there's going to be a bit of a learning curve to that.
I guess I need to add context to why I said what I said. Sean Surratt was asked, is he more likely to learn center, or do you think he can go back to his old skills at tackle? This is a great question. In my mind right now, I see him as an interior player. We will start to teach him the center thing, but some guys, they can't do it. He still brings the value of being able to go back out to tackle. Very similar to some of the guys we have on the roster now. They can go in and play guard and then go back out and play tackle, which is flexible. Flexibility is great for us.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I know Colbert called him a guard. He said, quote, Dotson is a guard. He hasn't played any other position, and that's fine because he'll be a guard with us. So, I mean, maybe in some sort of like B.J. Finney played tackle, in Kansas State for, I think, a game.
No, I'm talking, you're losing. I think you're losing what I'm trying to say. No, I'm not trying to suggest he plays tackle, Alex. I'm just saying that he has the old skills to play tackle. God forbid you ever get into that pinch.
Yeah, right, in some sort of like crazy emergency situation. But yeah, I mean, I guess just obviously there's going to be a bit of a learning curve to get him more flexible because obviously he's got to get more flexible to be part of this roster.
Look, the first flexibility I want to see with him is maybe can he play some left guard? That's
right.
That's what I want to see. We know he can play right guard, but obviously the Steelers have a right guard, and I thought Ramon Foster had something interesting on Twitter the other day. The fact that people saying, well, why don't we just move? Why don't the Steelers just move David DeCastro over to left guard now and let Dotson play his natural position? And Foster kind of said, look, leave Dave alone.
Yeah, you don't move your all-pro for a rookie.
Right. You don't go kicking him over for that, and that makes a lot of sense there. You have time where you can work with a younger player to get him through the muscle memory and all that goes along with it. You don't have to get in a rush with Dotson, hopefully, here. So and once again, just because we haven't seen him play left guard in any of his college tape, look, it's going to be a tough transition for him for some degree. From some degree, we'll just have to see how much. Now, you had a guy like Foster that came in initially as like a right tackle, and it really cracked his first several games. A lot of his early snaps in the NFL level with the Steelers were at right guard.
Right.
There. And then, things happen, I think, with Kemoatu and all. Anyway, he ended up having to go over to left guard, and that became his primary position for the last several years of his career there. So it's not like it can't be done. But then you go back and you look several years ago about, when they had to bring Flozo Adams in. That was a guy that's predominantly left tackle, his career. And he talked about the challenges of trying to pick right tackle up on the fly years ago. So people just see it as, he's a guard. Just put him in at left guard. It's just not that simple. And when you talk about, look, you want to, make sure Dotson's Dotson's comfortable learning the offense and playing the right guard position, is more of his natural position. But the next flexibility you would hope to see would be him playing left guard.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's not insurmountable. Of course, he can and will eventually move around, and all these guys do it. Look at Matt Filer and how much he's bounced around, and Chris Hubbard and all those guys. But just the lack of the offseason program, he can't get that process started today, and he may not begin that process until August in training camp, and that's going to put him behind the eight ball a little bit. That's another reason why he probably won't crack the starting lineup in year one.
Sure would be nice to have two guards that can move.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. You still have Wisniewski there, and he's got flexibility. He can play all three spots. So, if something were to happen and Filer's got to kick back out, probably Wisniewski's going to be your guy inside. Mm-hmm. All right, anything else from Colbert or Tomlin to touch on? I think that was probably the bulk of what caught my eye in their press conference.
Yeah, I think that got most of it there.
Colbert did say about nose tackle, and I know I've been barking up this tree a lot. He's talked about how it's a dying position, or he says, I don't want to say it's dying, but it's less and less of a base defense, and I think everyone understands that, but it's still 300 snaps a year roughly, and that's still 300 snaps that I want to have a good nose tackle for, so there's still some uncertainty about what's going to be, who's going to play that spot. Carlos Davis could do it, Big Dan could do it. Could they kick someone inside? Potentially, but I just have a lot of the same questions I had pre-draft, I have post-draft.
We keep getting a few emails from listeners saying, well, the Steelers have Chris Wormley listed as a nose tackle on the website. Yeah, we know that. We've covered that on previous podcasts here. But in the same breath, Kevin Colbert says he's a defensive end, Mm-hmm. So, and look, I have mentioned that very few snaps. We have seen Chris Wormley play a little bit of nose tackle during his time with Baltimore, but it wasn't much of anything when it comes to that. So really, we're kind of in a wait and see mode. Yeah, we realize he is listed as a nose tackle on the website, but when you turn around and you look at how little he's actually played that position, and at the NFL level and college level too, for that matter, and then you see what Kevin Colbert said a week or so, whenever it was after they signed Wormley, you have to be in wait and see mode to see what's going to happen there. We just can't assume that he's going to be the nose tackle now, talking about Wormley, because there's really been no signs other than really kind of them listing him as a nose tackle on the team's website, which Lord knows we've seen them do list some things on the team website be wrong before. So, right. We're going to have to wait until kind of this first official, unofficial depth chart kind of comes out, and then even then kind of wait until we actually see it. Somebody, Alex sees it with his own eyes, hopefully in some sort of training camp setting.
Yeah, again, I'll believe it when I see it, but at this point, since they didn't address it, unless they sign a veteran, which I kind of hope they do, I mean, I may play Wormley inside just because he's got the skill set of a run stuffer to do. He's a little too tall for that, but of course, Big Dan's even taller than him, and he's the obvious choice right now. So I don't know what they're going to do. I understand it is not the most marquee position. This is not 2000, but it's still a valuable position, and you want to have a good option there. You just don't want to have any weakness as a starter or anyone that's going to play 300-plus snaps. So I hope that I'm sure they have a plan. We'll see what it is. I don't know what that plan is, though.
You can't be vulnerable, especially right now. And you look at what Baltimore did. They're still going to be a power running team, in addition to using Jackson the way they've used him before. You can't be vulnerable up the middle.
They just drafted another running back. They just drafted Dobbins.
You can't. You got to have somebody when you're in base type situations there with a 3-man front that can be able to hold his own to some degree, because you can't let those guards get off easily and get out to the second level and get on them linebackers. If you do, then, team's going to run it over and over again until you can kind of stop that stuff. So, yeah, you're only in that, roughly 30% of the time, but it doesn't mean that you just need to throw just anybody out there on top of it. Now, to Wormley and Wormley's defense, he has one of his bright spots in his tape from Baltimore is his ability to play the run from inside between tackle to tackle, So that at least is one of the bright spots with him. Is he going to be necessarily a guy because of his length that can kind of, occasionally two-gap for you? Probably not, but he can play the run.
Yeah, no, that's the number one thing he offers. And again, and even beyond this year, not only, let's say that one of those guys becomes your answer at No Snack over 2020, well, they're all free agents after this year. So who's your longer-term option? Who's your 2021 option? Are we having the same conversation next year? I suspect we will be.
Yeah, look, there's no guarantee right now. I mean, he's only signed through this year. Talking about Wormley and assuming even Alualu, sticks around this year, that's probably going to be it for him. And
McCullers is a free agent after this year, correct?
Right. I mean, assuming McCullers sticks this year. I mean, you could have 3 of these defensive linemen that might be on your 53 this year very easily. You could very easily see all 3 of them not in town in this time next year.
Okay, was that it for Colbert Tomlin? That was all I had.
I think we beat that up pretty good.
Stuff there. Anything else you want to talk about with this draft class? You want to look a little bit further out and talk about the rest of the AFC North, who all had, I think, fantastic draft classes across the board.
I think real quick, the doctor was in this morning, Alex.
Dr. Mel.
Dr. Mel was in. She's given a virtual physicals to the draft class, and she's got a very, very nice and thorough write-up on SteelersDepot.com, looking at kind of the injury histories of all these guys and whether or not there's any concern related to any of them when it comes to moving forward, as far as past college injuries. So if you get a chance, make sure you stop by Steelers Depot and look at that real thorough article that Dr. Mel has up on the site for us.
Yeah, it's fantastic. A breakdown of every single draft pick. And obviously some of these guys do have some injury history, whether you're talking Anthony McFarland, Antoine Brooks Jr., a little bit on, I think, Claypool as well with an ankle injury that he had. A shoulder injury, I should say. So really good information there. I can't wait to dive into it some more and learn about these guys. Okay, so let's talk about the AFC North. And as I said, I think Pittsburgh had the worst draft of the 4 in the sense of not to slight them as much as to say that the rest of the AFC North just had an awesome draft and a lot more draft capital to work with. Let's start with Baltimore since we've talked about them a lot. They just seem to get like the guys we talk about every single year. They get Patrick Queen at 28, which of course you knew they were going to get Patrick Queen to fall to them. They get J.K. Dobbins in the second round, who a lot of Steeler fans wanted to see in a Steelers uniform. Matt Abuke, my guy, in the third round. Duvernay, Malik Harrison. I mean, I'm just going through the list of names here. Ben Bredson we talked about. I think they got Proche in the sixth round. Just a really solid draft class, top to bottom.
Yeah, even a guy like Broderick Washington, I looked at when I was going through, kind of looking at maybe potential late round guys who had went to the Senior Bowl, that maybe defensive tackle capable and all. I even looked at some of his tape there as well, and they ended up fifth round feels a little rich for him. But he's just yet another guy that I remember kind of searching out in regard to the Steelers there. I never was a big Ben Bredesen player throughout this kind of process here, he went in the fourth where I think I had him rated there. I think the Steelers got the better guard, when it comes to Dotson versus Bredesen. And look, Harbaugh's brothers from Michigan, right? So a little bit of insight on them on the guard as well too. Malik Harrison is a guy that we didn't get serious about him potentially maybe being a Steeler, but we did kind of toss his name out once or twice there. So look, here's the thing. I know a lot about most of their draft class because looking at them as potential Steelers players.
Yeah, it really felt like a lot of the guys that we discussed. It happens every year. I don't know what it is. I think they're listening to us. They're bugging the podcast. But, yeah, a lot of good prospects, I think, went to Baltimore. Cincinnati obviously had the top pick.
What do you know about Phillips? I didn't watch much of Phillips.
Tyree Phillips. That was the one guy I didn't like. He's a big dude, played left tackle, probably have to be a guard at the next level, kind of a sloppy body. The movement skills aren't great. I watched him a little bit. I think he was down at the Senior Bowl too. That's one pick where I go, okay, I'm glad Baltimore drafted him because I don't think he's going to be a whole lot of anything.
And Devin Duvernay, boy, they got him a good guy there. We'll see if he'll be able to translate onto the field for them. But I hate not being able to root for him anymore.
At the top for the Bengals, of course, was Joe Burrow, but they still had several picks after. They took T. Higgins at 33, who we kind of thought maybe if he fell to Pittsburgh, he could potentially be in play as a sleeper pick, but he's gone at 33. Logan Wilson, linebacker. The Bengals loaded up on linebackers, and they needed them in the worst ways.
They needed some linebackers, and boy, they addressed it there.
Wilson in the third round, Akeem Davis-Gaither, one of my favorite players in this draft, in the fourth round at 107. And I think they took Marcus Bailey in the seventh round, who probably would have been a day 2 pick had it not been for all the torn ACLs he's had to deal with. So a lot of help at linebacker. They get T. Higgins at receiver. A nice draft class for the Bengals.
That Logan Wilson can move.
Great week at the Senior Bowl. Let's see, who else did they get? Khalid Kareem, a defensive end, tackle from Kansas. But yeah, I mean, it's just in terms of getting their quarterback. Obviously, Burrow's going to define this class. And do you think Burrow starts right away? Or do you think he sits now? They still have Dalton there.
That's going to be a great question. Personally, I would try to bring him along as slow as possible. You fear for that David Carr syndrome, or not David. Was it David or Derek? David Carr syndrome. Where you just get him in there too quick, and he gets beat up and he loses that confidence there. So I would, assuming they can hold on to Andy for a little while. I would try to go that route. Nobody expects them to compete this year. So I would, obviously at some point you want to get Burrow into this thing, into the mix sooner rather than later. But I'm not so sure I would put him out there right from week 1.
I'm with you, especially in a year like this where everyone's going to be behind the 8 ball. I said that phrase a lot, probably too much, but with the whole lack of an offseason program and just the craziness of the pandemic. So, yeah, I wouldn't start Burrow right away. The one complaint I think Bengals fans could have with the draft is still not addressing offensive line enough. I know they will get Jonah Williams back, but that right side of the line still looks subpar. They did draft a tackle, but not until the 5th round. So you want to make sure you protect your asset, and there's probably still some work to do with the Bengals addressing their offensive line. With Cleveland, they got a really good pick at number 10 with Jedrick Wills, one of the most physical run blockers in the draft that I think most people say was a steal for Cleveland at 10. They took Grant Delpit in the second round, the free safety that did fall a little bit and had some questions, had a down 2019, battled an ankle injury. They took Jordan Elliott to be their nose tackle in the third round. Jacob Phillips also with their third round comp pick, inside linebacker from LSU. Harrison Bryant, who I think you instinctively have the T-Rex emoji to every single time his name gets brought up. Let's see, Nick Harris, the center. So
they got a couple of T-Rexes there, don't they?
They are. They got your guy, though, Donovan Peoples-Jones, who you were pretty high on in the 6th round, which I wasn't as crazy about him as maybe you and some others were, but in the 6th round, that's pretty good value. It's worth a flyer.
I think he's got upside. So
he does.
I think that's the big thing with Donovan Peoples-Jones, especially. Look, he's got some return capability as well too. He is a guy that can have some that can add some splash. Obviously, it's going to be an uphill battle for him, but I can see them trying to fit him in initially as say they're fifth receiver on their depth chart, 6th receiver on their depth chart, and give you a little something on special teams as well.
Yeah, but I think the big thing obviously is getting the Wolves at the top. They had Conklin. The downfall of the Browns last year, outside of the coaching staff, was the offensive line and how that was ignored too much. And to sign Conklin, to draft Wolves at the top, and he's got to flip the left tackle. That's going to be a bit of a transition, but that should give them a really good offensive line, and it's going to protect and improve the biggest issue this team had last season.
All right, when I think we both agree, the Ravens, when it comes to the AFC North, had the best draft.
Totally agree.
I would probably put the Bengals next.
I'm with you.
Then really, I'm not so sure I wouldn't put the Steelers draft ahead of the Browns.
I think I'd still go Cleveland just because of getting Wolves at 10 just solves that big need, but I could see the argument.
What else? Delpit on the back end is a good player. Is he? He should start for you. But after that, Ellie. What else did they draft that makes you go, oh man, that guy is most definitely going to hit the field for them and be somebody to contend with.
Yeah, I hear you. I think Cleveland's clearly in 3rd or 4th place. I think the Bengals and Ravens are certainly in the top 2. Baltimore almost certainly at 1. Elliott's not bad though in the 3rd round. Phillips I didn't love at 97. I think just the fact that you get Peoples-Jones is a high upside flyer at 187. To me, it just, and this is obvious, having a 1st round pick helps, and getting Wolves was such a big win for them that puts them over Pittsburgh in 3rd place.
Okay, fair enough. What, they gonna have a trainer feed Bryant and Harris or what?
You're so mean to those guys. Oh, the poor Harris Bryant.
Kind of hard to get the spoon up to the mouth there, you know. But Nick Harris, look, I mean Nick Harris from the effort, technical standpoint, he reminds you a little bit of Shipley, right? You know.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
From a few years ago there. So look, Shipley, I'm surprised Shipley lasted as long as he did. I'm not, it's not impossible, but Nick Harris is a little bit undersized guy with short arms that going to have a tough time. And Bryant is more of a move tight end as well too. So thank goodness they're not going to be relying. I don't think Bryant on having to block too terribly much for you. So it'll be interesting to see how much they can get out of him at the tight end position. Just really outside of Wills, really their draft, at least on paper, doesn't look too intimidating. Talking about the Browns. Look, yeah, you have to put Bengals in second place alone just because they got him a franchise quarterback or what looks to be a good franchise quarterback. Then they follow it up by getting them a weapon in T. Higgins. They're pretty dang good wide receiver that some people thought could probably go in the first round there. So that alone gets the Bengals the number 2 spot.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said there in the analysis of it. To look even further in just the NFL draft as a total, just to look at the broadcast side of things, I think everyone did a really good job for the difficulties of this year. And I think the simulcast with ESPN, NFL Network, and just the whole production quality of it. It wasn't perfect, obviously. There were some glitches and delays and blips, but hats off to them because that is a difficult task.
Yeah, look, I mean, it was tough for them to pull this off, and they did. Well, let's kind of go through the draft kind of position group by position group real quick here. Okay. Got to start at the tight end. We've talked about the tight end position a lot, especially early in this thing, talking about how good it is and isn't. Boy, when you look at the first, if I would have guaranteed you back in February that the first 4 tight ends off the board would be Komet, Assisi, DeGuara, and Keene, what would you have told me?
Yeah, that's a surprising list. I love the Patriots took 2 tight ends of those 4 to start with Ossie and Keene. But yeah, I mean, it was
Ossie. I keep saying that name wrong.
That's all good. Yeah, it obviously was not a banner class. I mean, I think most people would have seen Komet at the top, and then after that, it was just kind of dealer's choice of who you liked.
Why do you think Troutman went? You would think when I got a firm grasp of what Adam Troutman was and wasn't, I really saw him going kind of in the 3rd round to the Patriots. So Why do you suppose that didn't happen? What allowed Troutman to slide all the way down to 105?
Yeah, I mean, that's still 3rd round. I mean, it's basically in your target range, and the Patriots always kind of go off the board. I think Keene is actually a really nice sleeper pick. I think I had that in my full 7-round mock draft. I had Dalton Keene going to the Patriots, so I feel kind of proud of that one. I think Troutman, obviously, the small school factor played a role. I think him at the Senior Bowl having a great week down there helped soothe those concerns, but I would just say Troutman's overall upside and dynamic play, vertical, middle of the field, isn't quite there. Maybe Ossie's higher, so maybe just the Troutman feels a little cap in terms of the big playability would be the reason why he would fall a little bit.
Going through some of the rest of these tight ends, Harrison Bryant, we already talked about him going to the Browns. Albert O ended up getting in, making it in the 4th round, going to the Broncos. I'm not sure I understand that. Maybe they're going to try.
In what sense? In that it was too high, not too
low? Well, they in Albert O.A., I kind of felt even 4th round's kind of, that's borderline where you should go. But Broncos of all teams, right? I mean, with Fant, and then they sign
re-sign Hireman.
And also the Steelers tight end.
Nick Vannett.
Yeah, so that was kind of a head scratcher there. Colby Parkinson's going to fit in great with Seattle.
That was a good selection. Yeah, I like that one. And then Hopkins goes a couple picks later to the Rams.
Right, and then right after Hopkins,
When you said let's start with tight ends, I knew exactly where you wanted to go with this. Charlie Warner, you might as well just be the 49ers fan, Dave, because they're taking all your tight ends.
Look, I'm the tight end whisperer, am I not?
You are. I mean, absolutely. I think, Kyle Shanahan is just listening to Dave and saying, let's just draft those tight ends.
I mean, because look, this is a guy that stuck out the most from me right from the shoot when going through all these tight ends. Now look, we'll see what Charlie Warner becomes. I mean, he's not going to become George Kittle. At least I don't think so. But that lets you know what this tight end class really is, and I think it speaks volume about. And look at the guy. I think that even more importantly, look at the guys that went undrafted, Alex. I mean, we're talking about Moss and the Washington tight end. Both guys I was down on right from the start there in there, and a lot of those guys, a lot of people had at the top of their list way back in February.
Yeah, no, I got caught up in that hype a little bit, and I think you obviously proved right there ultimately. And he signed with Washington, that Moss as a UDFA. And I don't know where Bryant went, but yeah, I mean, it was not a great class, and I'm honestly surprised that Warner it took that long for him to go off the board. I thought he could even go maybe a round or round and a half higher, but 49ers is a great fit for that offense and what they asked those guys to do.
I think when the dust settled, I was kind of hoping Charlie Warner would go late fifth, sixth, so that's about right for him. I think Cooley had him way overrated than that. But look, this is a guy. I think you've got to look. I think people get what did we learn here about evaluating the tight end position? What did guys like you and I learn about evaluating the tight end position this year?
That I think generally the focus is on the athletes and the big play guys, and if you can't do that, then your stock's going to get hurt if you don't have the size and speed combination to win in the NFL.
And I think the more versatile that you can be as a blocker too, right? Because a lot of these guys, to some degree, can block. Komet, Asiasi, DeGuara, right? I mean, he's Keen. Can block. Troutman. I mean, those 1, 2, 3, 4, first five have blocking capabilities. Some better than others, but I think that needs to be looked at, and really to some degree, Albert O. There, and Colby Parkinson too is a guy that we talked about all along, saying maybe this guy should be a mid-round guy. Well, he was. Bryson Hopkins, not so much. Charlie Warner, yes, and then then you have more of the flex guy there at the bottom in Stephen Sullivan there. So what I learned, that I think you got to go outside the stat book really, really hard when it comes to these guys. Was Moss okay in the blocking department? I think you showed that right from the start. If he's going to make an NFL roster, talking about Thad Moss, it's going to be because he gives you something as maybe a number 2 blocking tight end, right?
Sure. I mean, obviously, had he been healthy and been able to test, he would not have tested very well. But just the fact that he was healthy and able to test, maybe he gets drafted off of that. I think the fact that he did have that foot surgery, was not able to work out, certainly impacted the reason why he didn't get drafted out. Because I think there was enough talent to say he could get drafted, just not as high as I initially thought he would. And then you factor in the foot injury, and that kind of tumbles his draft stock all the more.
All right. What else do you want to look at position wise?
Well, the receivers went heavy and early, as we kind of expected, and I think Claypool was, I think they said, was the 10th receiver off the board at number 49 overall. So it was as expected there. It was pretty as expected with the tackle class, how they went pretty heavy at the top, and I don't think there were any big surprises there.
Van Jefferson getting drafted before Denzel Mims. You like both those kids, but if I would have told you Van Jefferson goes off the board before Denzel Mims back in February, what would you have told me?
Yeah, that was a surprise. Now, I love Van Jefferson. I think he was the best receiver at the Senior Bowl. I thought that foot surgery, similar to Moss, was going to impact him a little bit, but that's a good fit for the Rams there. And, 2 picks ahead of Denzel Mims. I did not expect that one.
Looking down the list here at some of these wide receivers, I never looked at guys like Desmond Patman. I don't know if you looked at him. One guy that I didn't watch any film on, but constantly I think he showed up in a lot of the rankings kind of in the middle there, was that Isaiah Coulter out of Rhode Island.
Yeah, there were 2 Rhode Island kids. I don't know where the other one, I think his name was Aaron Parker, went. Where did Coulter end up going?
The Texans.
Okay, yeah, that's a good pick there in the 5th round is solid value. Juwan Jennings went. Where did he go? 7th round.
7th round to the 49ers.
Yeah, that's a great pick there. I think that guy's going to be something in the NFL. That is, I know that he did not run well, but that is a steal for San Francisco.
And another late round guy was a guy that checked a lot of Steelers boxes that we talked about there, especially in your study, Freddie Swain.
Right? Where did he end up? With?
Seattle in the 6th round there. So that's another guy interested to watch there. And then really Malcolm Perry late, the kid out of Navy, going to be kind of that converted guy, right? You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was the Navy option dude, and I like the Chargers getting KJ Hill at 220. I think that's good value there as a dependable slot receiver.
All right, definitely a loaded class, and we knew that going into it with this group here. What other position?
I mean, quarterbacks obviously had the big buzz. Burrow at the top. You got Tua going to Miami, Herbert going to the Chargers, and then the surprises. And I think the reactions to the picks of Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts shows that why I didn't want a quarterback, because you see how angry a fan base gets when you feel like you're in win now mode and you're taking a quarterback who's not going to help you win now.
Yeah, that was kind of a head scratcher there, right?
Green Bay had one of the worst drafts I've ever seen. It was just no receivers in the best receiver class in the last decade. Trading up for a quarterback when you have Aaron Rodgers. They drafted a couple linemen. I mean, they're just giving their team no help.
What do you think about Hurts and the Eagles?
Again, I like Jalen Hurts, but my standpoint is that you want to build around Carson Wentz, not try to find the next Carson Wentz. I guess it's I don't know. I reject that idea of taking a quarterback that high if you're in that kind of win now mode. And I know they drafted some receivers. They did at least add some weapons. They drafted 2 or 3 receivers. They got Rager in the first. They trade for Marquise Goodwin, so at least they're giving some more help as opposed to what Green Bay did, which was essentially nothing. But I still don't love that idea.
3 years from now, how many of these quarterbacks are we going to still be talking about?
That's a good question. I would say Burrow. I like Jordan Love a lot. I think that, I mean, I don't know how much we're talking about him because how much he's playing 3 years from now. But yeah, I mean, there's some. They're not all going to make it, of course.
Right. All right. What other position group here?
Let's see.
What'd you think about the edge?
Yeah, it was just a pretty blah year. It was hard to find those good pass rushers. You got Chase Young, which we knew was going to go to Washington at the top, and then from there, there were a couple guys. Gross Matos goes early 2nd round. Chase-Ian goes to, where did Chase-Ian go? Went in the 1st round. I forget what team took him. To Jacksonville. Yeah, Jacksonville took him.
Yeah.
But it just was not a great edge class this year.
Zach Bond ended up going. I had a feeling he was going to slide, and he did. Because I'm not sure teams. You got to have an idea of what you're going to be interested to see how he's used. And the Patriots took Uche, so they're definitely going to have some sort of plan in place for him.
Yeah, I think that was a good pick. They took Anthony Jennings, so they kind of took the high upside guy in Uche, and then the maybe lower upside, very technically and refined player in Anthony Jennings, I think, with their next selection. So, yeah, getting a couple pass rushers.
You surprised Tanner Muse ended up with the Raiders?
No, I mean, I guess the fit doesn't surprise me. How early he went. I thought he was going to go 4th round, but to go pick 100 overall was a little higher than I anticipated. But Oakland is they do their own thing very much.
All right, kind of speeding through the rest of this. What else? Anything else kind of jump out to you? Maybe round by round, or a guy that maybe you were high on that fell, or a guy that you weren't high on that got drafted early.
Yeah, I think Solomon Kinley went too early in the 4th round. I'm just kind of scrolling through the list here. Meek Robertson fell a little bit more than what I had thought he would. Biodesh goes in the 4th round to Dallas, which I like that fit a lot. Try to replace Travis Frederick. Curtis Weaver.
What do you think Ashton Davis in the 3rd, falling down to the 3rd?
Is that where he ended up falling? Man, I think that was my top safety this year, so I think that's a great pick. And then Antoine Winfield goes mid-2nd. It was Tampa Bay at 45, so a couple of good safety prospects.
I think that Arkansas defensive tackle McTelvin Agim going in the 3rd was surprise to me. I had him more as a later round prospect there. I'm trying to find out see if anybody else. DJ Wonnum, you weren't very high on DJ Wonnum. He went 4th round to the Vikings.
Yeah, that's an overdraft to me. But I think to stick with the edge rushers, Curtis Weaver, I mentioned, going in the 5th round, I think that's excellent value for Miami. I know the athletic traits weren't great for him, but he's a good pass rusher that I think could be basically ready day one.
Anybody else jump out to you here?
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through. Evan Weaver goes in the 6th round. It's good value there for Arizona. Geno Stone of Baltimore. I think we mentioned that earlier in the 7th round. I mean, that's a great 7th round pick. And Mr. Irrelevant was Tate Crowder, linebacker from Georgia, goes to the Giants at 255.
That offensive lineman that Dave T was talking about, Simon Stepniak, out of Indiana, ended up going to the Packers in the 6th round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was a guy that I watched a little bit on after we talked. How much of Brooks did you watch out of Maryland before the Steelers drafted him?
Not a lot. I knew he didn't test great. I knew that he was that dime hybrid. The exact fit was unknown, but I needed to do a deep dive into him, and that's why I had to report the day after he got drafted.
All right, we got a lot of tape still to work on here, but that's today on SteelersDepot.com, the annual redraft post, and it usually ends up being pretty entertaining sometimes in the comment section there. Basically, what we ask people to do is look at the players still on the board, each pick between each Steelers pick. However many players were drafted after the Steelers' actual selection until their next selection, whenever that was, that group of players, you're asked to, would you have stuck, let's say, with Chase Claypool? Would you have stuck with the Chase Claypool pick, or would any one of those next players, in that next group of 30 or whatever it is in between picks, which one would you have drafted instead? That ends up usually being a pretty lengthy commented on post there every year, so that'll be up on SteelersDepot.com later today.
Yeah, that's always a lot of fun. It gets a lot of good feedback. I might even try my hand at it this year and see what I come up with, because I might have some slight disagreements with some of the choices this team made.
I invite you to participate. All right, shall we get to? We got tons of email here. Let's see, from Wes. Hey guys, it's me again, Wes. I guess you can tell this is part 2 of the email I sent on day 2 of the draft. I noticed the undrafted free agent punter we signed, Corliss Waitman, is a left-footed kicker. Quick question. Who was the last left-footed punter the Steelers had on the team as a starter? Was Gardocki?
I have no idea. I think Wes asked me this on Facebook, and I am not sure. That's a good trivia question. If he ends up making the team, I'll certainly look into that. Was Chris Gardocki left-footed? I'm not. I think you might be right. Oh my God, I think you're right. I'm just looking at a quick link here. It looks like Gardocki's left-footed. I mean, just looking at some random dude's website, but it says Gardocki was a left-footed punter. So, god dang.
I don't know if he was the last one.
Well, I mean, I'm guessing he is. There aren't too many left-footed kickers or punters. We found the 3 of the top 20 punters in NFL history based on most punts are left-footed punters, including Lee Johnson, Chris Gardocki, and Ron Stark. So,
Interesting.
All right. Good guess. You got to get on. You should have been on Stump the Schwab back then. That would have been your show.
Yeah, what's that? The Sports Jeopardy. I usually do good on Sports Jeopardy with on the that Dan Patrick used to do as well too. I got a lot of great useless information in my head. It's the problem that finding the useful information. All right, Derek Smith writes in about Leo Lewis, one of the undrafted free agents here. And, he says, okay, this is not a podcast question, but he says. Basically, anyway, he's inviting us. He thinks Leo Lewis could be a viable camp body, and with a good showing has potential to be a practice squad player this upcoming season. He's got a very, very lengthy explanation here. Not a podcast question, easy for me to say. Let's see. Jay Smith right in on the draft class. He says, I was very pleased with this draft class for having only 6 picks. I thought they did a really good job. My favorite pick on day 3 was McFarland. The guy reminds me of Willie Parker with the explosion and the big play ability. I have to disagree with Dave. I think he can be a feature back, maybe not 25 carry a game guy, but definitely he can be a starter if it proves he can block. He played very good for a horrible Maryland team in a major conference, long TD runs, and speed can be can't be understated in his play. Look, he's not. I'm going to be shocked if he's even more than a 10 carry a guy game.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are concerns about just the size, the blocking. how much work a receiver he can do. I mean, to be a feature back, you have to be 20, 25 carries. So, I mean, I think that definition is pretty universal. I mean, there's talent there, and he certainly, like I said, adds that element of speed that the reader's referencing here that's interesting. It just feels a bit redundant based on what they already have with Kerrith White. They could have gone in other directions. But, yeah, Tyler McFarland's an untalented player, and you made the reader made a great point that he was a good player on a pretty bad Maryland team.
And look, where they got him at, probably a very good chance. He's, not definite, but you get into that fourth round. How many fourth rounders have not made the initial roster? I mean, Duran Grant, I know it happens.
Fred Gibson, Duran Grant, I believe are the only two.
So if you just look at it just from a sheer where they were drafted standpoint, you have to think McFarland's got a pretty damn good shot at making this roster. Now, what's the rest of the draft class? I mean, what's the rest of the depth chart going to look like at a running back position? How many are they going to carry here? Look, your fullback's Watt, right? And he can, in a pinch, he can carry the football for you, right?
Right.
Obviously, you have James Conner. Obviously, you have Benny Snell, you would think. Somebody's got to be the man out. Right now, Jalen Samuel's probably not feeling too damn good. Although he could still make it. The guy that's most definitely out barring injury is Edmonds.
Right, and Kerrith White's in a tough spot because he's got the same skill set as McFarland. McFarland's got the draft pick status, probably going to make the team. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, usually they only carry 3 running backs. They probably have to carry 4, though, because it's hard to make this 3 and then cutting all those guys, though that is possible.
And look, at least Snell gives you something on special teams, right?
A little bit, yeah. McFarland, I think, could get a look in the kick return game, and White obviously can return, and Samuels does a little bit there, too. One other quick note on McFarland, since we brought him up. I know we talked about the character concerns and the anonymous scouts. Elijah Brooks, the Terrapins running back coach, refuted those reports, whatever it's worth. We want to give both sides here, and said, quote, "He loves competing. We never had any issues getting him going during the week. Called him a fierce competitor and also respectful." So the running back coach from Maryland refutes the report of McFarland having any sort of character concern.
He rebukes it.
Rebukes it. There's a good word for it. I like that. Rebukes it.
I rebuke it. All right. Richard writes in, can you show us a contextualization of Anthony McFarland in pass protection? All right. I have begun trying to look at Anthony McFarland in pass protection. I haven't found a lot so far.
Is it more than Jalen Samuels?
I have not. I'm not deep. All right. But I'm having issues. Okay, there. So, Richard, we got a lot of off-season here. That's one of the aspects of McFarland's game that I will definitely be looking at. What did you think about it? Did you go through any of those 17 explosive runs I put up?
Yeah, I did. I mean, it just highlighted his speed, and the dude has wheels. There's no arguing that.
Let's see here. For all concerned, this one's from Steve Rodenbaugh. For all the concern about how the Steelers didn't do much to address the nose tackle position. This is one of those he's pointing out that Wormley is listed as nose tackle and not a defensive tackle or defensive end on the Steelers official website. Steve, we've already talked about this. We know what he's listed as. He goes on to say he's the only one listed as a nose tackle. Even Daniel McCullers and Carlos Davis are listed as defensive tackles and not nose tackle. Wormley does have more of a traditional build of a 3-4 defensive end, but Kimo Von Ohoffen had a similar build to Wormley and played nose tackle with the Bengals and was the Steelers starting. I think you're reaching there, Steve, trying to draw comparisons to Kimo,
who also played still a lot of defensive end too.
Right.
I go with what Colbert said over what the Steelers website is, and Colbert called him an end. Now, I think Wormley has a skill set to play inside at this point. I might be tempted to do it, but Colbert said he's a D end, not really a nose tackle.
Steve, that's why we kind of re-emphasized earlier in this show that we're going to have to wait and see. We can say, well, he's listed as this, listed as that, but it really is going to be a wait and see right now with that.
And it's the Steelers website. I think for the longest time, and potentially still now, like Matt Canada is still not even listed on the Steelers website. So take what the website says with a grain of salt.
Absolutely. Eddie writes in to tell us, just saw an article that we offered Winston a more lucrative deal than the Saints. If you guys want to put it on the site. You know why it's not on the site, Eddie? Because we don't believe it.
Yeah, I don't think that's credible at all.
It comes from a Tampa Bay blogger I've never heard of before.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen anybody back that up yet. Have you?
No, if someone does, we'll talk about it, but no indication. It's not even official with New Orleans yet, right? I keep checking to see if it's official. It's not been announced.
Right. They're talking that maybe after late Monday is when it might become, and that it'll be a 1-year deal, and that maybe even the Saints will do something like put in some false years in there so they can spread out the signing bonus there to lower his cap hit. Okay, that's all fine and good. The Steelers are not going to do anything like that. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that they're not going to offer a lot of guaranteed money to a backup quarterback. All right. They don't hardly have any cap space. They're not going to restructure more contracts already for a backup quarterback to potentially be a 1-year guy. There's just nothing about Winston or Cam Newton from a logical standpoint other than them signing a minimum salary, benefit salary contract that would allow them to land in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, though I am curious how the Saints are going to structure this thing. And you talk about the false years because they don't have a lot of cap space either. So I'm just curious what that deal looks like.
Right, and yeah, I mean it is going to be interesting to see that. So that's where we are on that. Going through some of this. Cameron Andrews, hey David Knox, Cameron from Maryland, love the podcast, keep it up. With the additional roster spots, how many running backs and outside linebackers do you see us having on game day? What running back could you see not on the roster? Who do you think will win the spot of the third string backup outside linebacker? Training camp battles y'all are most looking forward to? Sorry for asking pretty much the same question 3 different ways. Keep up the good work there. Running back, we just went over what potentially the running back depth chart could look like. What do you think the outside linebacker depth chart looks like here?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of good competition. I haven't really thought about it so in-depth yet. I just kind of go and see who competes and go from there. I guess I'll take a crack at a 53-man roster. I think we usually do that coming off the draft, just a really early version of it. I think obviously Highsmith's going to have a great opportunity to come in right away to be the top backup as a senior, more experienced. But Ola has played some, and there's value in that. So it'll be a big battle between Ola and Highsmith and Kozora Skipper.
I tell you what, Ola and Skipper better be able to play special teams.
Mm-hmm. Ola did that last year. He did an okay amount of that, and Kozora, obviously that was the big issue that, him in the first place we were talking about last training camp. But yeah, Highsmith will have to prove it as well. So they all got to earn their keep on special teams.
We got plenty of time, Cameron, to talking about training camp battles we're looking forward to. So let's table that for a little bit there. Let's see. Bob Turner writes in, with the very limited draft capital this year, I didn't expect a great draft for the Steelers. Plus, Colbert has never been known to move up and down the draft board. He did. He moved up. He moved up last year, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. But I understand the overall point, Colbert is.
He may trade for a guy they like, but that is it. Some years they don't move at all. Like this year, I would have selected Mims at 49, but Claypool is fine. The only running back that I would have taken was Taylor, but he went at pick 44. I wasn't interested in Dobbins or Akers. Highsmith was a good pick, Bob says. I didn't like the pick of McFarland at all. I would have taken Kayvon Wallace. They were at Clemson Pro Day before everything got shut down, so I guess they didn't like him. I don't know if it was a question of them not liking him. I think it's just how they had the board stacked there. Dotson was a promising pick. Maybe Dunbar can do something with Davis, and Brooks is probably a special teams guy. I thought the Bengals had the best draft in the division, followed by the Browns, Ravens, and Steelers. The Ravens didn't feel their biggest need, a pass rusher. I had Queen in the late 20s, so that is where I thought he would go. I didn't want them to get Murray, and they didn't. The only guy they picked that I liked was Duvernay, but he was a late rounder, and that is where he was selected. On McFarland, Matt Canada is great at running the jet sweep. Remember the year at Pitt, so maybe they will be incorporated into the Steelers offense using McFarland. At least they held on to their 2021 picks. Great coverage to you and by your team. Best wishes, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, it really felt, I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on here real briefly, Dave, so buckle in. It felt like they were drafting this team as if Matt Canada was the offensive coordinator or offensive coordinator in waiting.
Ooh, shut your mouth.
I'm just saying, that was a thought that crossed my mind.
A lot of fingerprints for sure. And look, we are likely to see a lot of Matt Canada fingerprints on this offense.
It'll be interesting because, I mean, do you trust Randy Fichtner to be versatile and creative with Claypool and McFarland? I don't, so hopefully we do see some fingerprints.
Offensive coordinator by committee, probably sort of like defensive coordinator by committee last year.
Right, yeah. I mean, I don't know how Canada's role is going to be, obviously, and it's going to be so hard to figure that stuff out, but I'm sure we'll see some sort of infusion of ideas that he has incorporated into this offense.
Right, and I think it's going to be most visible from the shifts in motion aspect, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Justin Larson writes in, what do you guys make of the running back depth chart with the addition of McFarland out of Edmonds, Samuels, and White? Who would have the upper hand as a fourth back? And whoever you think it is, what would their role be? I.e., Samuels as a third down passing back. I think right now, and look, all three of these guys might end up are likely to be out on the street when the dust clears, barring injury. But I like Samuel's chances of hanging around the best of the three, then White, and then Edmonds.
Yeah, that's the order I would put it into, just because Samuels can wear a lot of hats. He doesn't wear them very well, but he can. He's got the most experience, most play time. If there's a guy to pick of those three, it's Jalen Samuels.
And Samuels his stomach can't be feeling too good right now.
Yeah, no way.
Tucker Cable writes in, Claypool special teams. Thanks for providing brilliant insight as usual for you guys, best in the biz. Thank you for that. I think I may be more excited for the special teams contributions that Chase Claypool can provide than anything. His senior year playing in what some people would say is a meaningless bowl game. Claypool made a splash play recovering a fumble on kick coverage on top of catching 7 balls. Dude just plays with truly tenacious effort and has been coached up well in special teams. In parentheses, Notre Dame special teams coordinator is Hall of Famer Bill Polian's son. My question is, how do you envision Danny Smith using this kid in 2020? Thanks again for everything you do, especially in these times. Peace and love, Tucker. I think we talked a little bit about that earlier in the show, Tucker. I expect him to be at the very least on punt coverage as a gunner and on kick coverage.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think kick return as well. Yeah, that was the other point I meant to make earlier. Not only did Claypool have a lot of tackles in special teams, he was doing it his senior year. I think he had like 7 tackles this past year. So he was that kind of guy throughout his entire career. He didn't just cut his teeth as a freshman, sophomore, and then stop playing there his junior and senior seasons like a lot of guys do. So, yeah, this is the guy that did it from start to finish, is tenacious, had a good week at the Senior Bowl into some of those drills, and that's an element he's certainly going to bring in year one.
Let's see here. What else do we have? Ben writes in a question, after hearing about Kevin Dotson growing up a Steelers fan, it made me curious on how both of you and Alex became fans of the Steelers. I think we've covered that several times, but real quick, I was born in Florida. My dad was a Cowboys / Dolphins fan in the early 70s. It was fun for me to be a little, you know what, as a kid and try to get underneath the old man's skin. He did not like the Steelers, so that was a natural fit.
I was born in Florida too, but I moved to Pennsylvania when I was very young, and so it was really more a geography thing, to be honest. But I'm glad I moved to where I moved.
Let's see here. Robbie writes in, running back by committee and Anthony McFarland Jr. Robbie says, I like a lot of Steeler Nation thought go running back early or leave it be, but they had other plans and drafted McFarland in the fourth. My question is, how do the Steelers get McFarland snaps without the same problem? This is a good question. How did the Steelers get McFarland snaps without the same problem Dree Archer and Chris Rainey had? It's obvious they're going to run. Let's see. Steelers have a poor track record with these types of backs, and I'm curious if you see something more to McFarland than Archer or Rainey that will allow the Steelers to use him effectively. I'm a longtime listener and visit Steelers Depot as my favorite source for Steelers information in Dublin, Ireland. Such a great question to come from Rob out of Dublin, Ireland. Thanks for all you do. Draft coverage in particular is very special to me and much appreciated. I've got my thoughts on this. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll answer it briefly because I don't know exactly where I come in on that. I understand the point, and there's definitely merit to it. It's a really important question, Rob. I would say that McFarland is definitely a bigger back, a thicker, more muscular back than G. Archer, even Chris Rainey. I mean, McFarland's 208. Archer was, 179 coming out. So there's a different body type. But, yeah, do you trust McFarland in pass protection? Do you trust him to protect Ben Roethlisberger? Probably not, especially not out of the gate. So that would be a concern. But I do think in terms of their body type, there is a pretty decent difference in terms of the overall frame that McFarland and Dre Archer had.
The way you prevent McFarland coming into the game with the flashing red light on his helmet, like I used to reference with Archer and Rainey all the time, is you got to give him snaps where he actually carries the football because he is a running back.
Mm-hmm. And between the tackles, which he can do, which is Archer could not run between the tackles, and McFarland I think is capable of that.
Right. You can't just put him in there and run the jet sweeps or the pitches or what else? Just getting cute. Every time he touches the ball, like they use Ryan. That actually happened. Switzer in the backfield. Those kind of things. Now, can you do it? First, you have to establish him as a running back and handing the football off to him traditionally. That's number one.
Yep, I agree. That's a great point.
Number two is you have to feel comfortable with using him at some point on the field in a obvious passing situation where you use him out of the backfield and or allow him to stay in and chip and release or something. He has to be proven to be. You have to make teams wonder, how is he going to be used on this play? Are they going to hand off to him? Are they gonna swing him out into the flat? Is he gonna stay in and pick up the blitzer? Is he gonna chip? There has to be some level of uncertainty for the defense when he's in the game, and that's something we never saw out of Rainey or Archer. It was always like this: oh Lord, Rainey Archer, the ball, some sort of trickeration or something's going to come where the ball gets in those guys' hands. You have to be able to run plays with him in the ball game without the ball going in his hands.
Right. That's a great point. That's a really good answer, Dave. Yeah, just use him like a running back and don't use him as this gadgety, siren-sounding player coming onto the field.
Right, and I guess I could have stopped right at the beginning there. You got to use him as a running back.
Right.
Plain and simple. So that is, and I think you made a great point about his body type. And look, this wasn't a huge break tackle guy, at least from what I can see. But there was the one clip, forget what game it was, one of his explosive runs where he did break a tackle and spin off of another one. So I still worry about him maybe getting broken in half, but a little less so than say Dre Archer or Chris Rainey. You agree?
Yeah, again, I understand some of that, and I mean, I hope they have this guy in backs on backers drill. If they don't, then I'll be really concerned that we're seeing Archer 2.0 just in terms of they're scared to use him like a running back. But yeah, Archer was, how tall was Archer? Like 5'8", 5'7", $179. Rainey was 5'8", 180. McFarland is 5'8", but he's 208. I mean, he does have he's not the power guy, I agree, but he's got a more muscle, more thicker build than what Archer and Rainey had. They were basically like sticks that were not running backs; they were just athletes.
Now he still remains probably tied, with Carlos Davis as my least favorite draft pick. It's not his fault. It's just once you, as I've said several times, once you didn't get one of those top backs that could potentially be quote unquote an every down back, why?
Yeah.
Would be my question. Now I'm looking forward to them proving me wrong. And showing me the value in there. But until then, all right. Jelani writes in, hey, Dave and Alex, love the draft coverage and breakdown of all the draft prospects, including the ones the Steelers drafted. My question to you guys, think the nose tackle for the 2020 season is on the roster, or do you think they'd go out and sign a free agent like Damon Harrison or Mike Daniels? Love the show. Look, those are going to be, Alex hit on that right at the top of this show. These next 2 weeks are going to be interesting, I think. And especially when you get away from this, the compensatory formula after today,
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what direction they're going to go. I mean, they do have some options. I guess we've seen some theoretical on the roster. It certainly won't be Carlos Davis, I'll tell you that. It could be someone on the outside. It could be an August trade. Colbert's pretty famous for making a trade in late summer to bring somebody in. So we'll see if that could happen again.
I don't think you can sit here and look at it and go, okay, Daniel McCullers, Tyson Alulu, Chris Wormley, or Carlos Davis.
Or Isaiah Bugs, because some people want to say Bugs.
Yeah, or Bugs. I mean, I just don't think you can sit there and get warm and fuzzies from that.
Yeah, it's just murky. You have some guys that either can't do it well or haven't done it before, and I don't know. Like I said, I exit the draft with the same questions I had going into it when it comes to that position.
Marcelo writes in, Danny Smith's last chance. He's coming after your boy.
Don't read it. I'm not giving permission to read this.
Greetings from Brazil. I religiously listen to the podcast every week. It appears the Steelers has added a lot of special team capable players in this draft. Do you think this season is the last chance Danny Smith has to show a good special teams play?
I mean, it's hard to say last chance. I don't know what's in their head right now, but I would hope that there's a turnaround for the kick return game. I don't know exactly how that's going to look like. I don't know if the guys they've added are going to dramatically change the kick return game. We'll see if McFarland gets a look back there. I think he's interesting to use, even though he's got one career kick return at Maryland. But that's, to me, again, the one area that was really poor last year and has been poor is the kick return game. And I hope that gets better. I don't know if it will, though, unfortunately.
Catch ball, run straight fast.
And block. Just the blocking last year was abysmal in the kick return game.
I got all the answers. Run fast, straight. Question on defensive tackle from Anthony Morgan. Do the Steelers have confidence in their current defensive tackles? Is Carlos Davis the sleeper, or is Wormley the hopeful starter, or Big Dan? Anthony, I think we answered that, or at least attempted to give our thoughts as best we could throughout the show. So we'll leave it at that when it comes to that one. Plenty more here. Let's see. Rookie contracts. Tom Hoy writes in, hey, Dave and Alex, big fan of podcasts and the website. The good thing is we're getting a lot of new names here on the questions, Alex.
It's good.
A lot of guys we haven't heard from here. A big fan of the podcast and the website. Thanks for all you guys do. My question for you is, what is the typical contract in years of a drafted player would get? Would it be a 4-year deal with the option of 5th? If the player is drafted in the 3rd round, how about in the 6th round? Is there a breakdown of it? Yes. These are all slotted now, Tom, as of like the 2011 CBA and all. Everything gets slotted here based on the cap and everything goes off of that, and the revenue sharing and all like that. Over the cap does a great job of breaking down what the speculated. They're not going to be exact, but they're pretty damn close of what each player gets. And look, all draft picks get 4-year contracts. And various degrees of signing bonuses, obviously, as it clicks on down the slots there. The only guys that get potential 5th-year options are your first-round guys, Tom. So none of the Steelers draft picks this year come with potential 5th-year options there. So all of it's slotted. The best thing I would tell you to do is Google over the cap rookie contracts, and it should take you to that table where it goes all the way down and shows you the value of each contract there. And then if you, I think, highlight and click on it, show you the breakdown of what the projected specific contract should be.
Only thing I would add is that undrafted players get 3-year deals. So for anyone, I had a couple of people say, they signed this guy to a 3-year deal. They must love him as an undrafted player. That's just standard fare for how undrafted contracts work.
Yeah, and that's how we tend to what's called priority undrafted free agents are usually the guys, especially in the Steelers case, that get a little bit of the larger signing bonuses there. We're probably not going to know about the signing bonus amounts until, let's see, they haven't even – the official transaction, even though the Steelers have announced the signings, they have not entered the probably later today or sometime this week. That will actually move into the official side of the NFL, showing those players signed. And then, I don't know, maybe hopefully by next Monday, I kind of doubt it though, we'll have some of the signing bonuses there.
I'm going to hit up Joel Corey. Got to go to your game.
Yeah, a lot of them should be fairly visible once they hit the NFLPA sheet. You know, it's easy to back those things out and kind of get a good idea. But hopefully within 2 weeks, I will know all the signing bonuses of this year's undrafted free agent class, which, by the way, Derek Wilson has a question about. Alex and Dave, which undrafted free agent are you most excited about? Being from Kentucky and a Wildcats fan, I'm super excited about the possibilities for Calvin Taylor, but I want to see what you guys thought about him and others. Looking forward to a breakdown of all the picks. Thanks for your hard work, Derek. Derek, Alex and I are still trying to get through all these undrafted guys, but I have actually gone kind of deep on Calvin, and I think Alex has as well.
No, I haven't yet. So I just know he's interesting because the dude's 6'9", that had 8.5 sacks last year. So what did you see on your early view of Calvin Taylor?
Big dude.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
Big dude. Moved him around a little bit on that defensive line. He tops or second best in the SEC in sacks last year.
He had 8.5, so he's up there.
He was up there. Now, more of a kind of a mauler that comes at you, you know, kind of, you know, you get a guy that big that kind of acts like a spider monkey in your on Mountain Dew on your face coming after you.
Let me write that one down on my scouting report. Spider monkey.
I mean, his hands are flailing. You know, not so much technique guy as much of a mauler coming at you in your face. Is my view.
Is he athletic? Relative to his size?
Yeah, he is. You'll see some twisting all in there. Okay. Yeah, he can. He did a good job at pressuring the quarterback there. More impressive than Daniel McCullers was for a guy that size coming out there. He's obviously, I think, more of going to be a guy in the middle than so on the edge. More lined up inside the tackles, I think. You know, more on the guards. I think you kind of want him on guards as much as possible there. But I'm continuing to dig. I haven't broken him down as far as against run support and all like that. I don't think he was on the field, and every down player with them. I think it was part of a kind of a substitution package as best as I can, going through a couple of games there. But kind of a guy that sacks more of a result of pushing and collapsing the pocket.
Okay, yeah, I'm excited to watch him. Other guys I haven't really watched any of these guys yet, but Josiah Coatney from Ole Miss, Bandy, the corner from the U, and even Leo Lewis from Mississippi State are guys that are kind of just struck me as somebody that might be something there at first glance.
But yeah, look, I mean, he's definitely a guy that's worth exploring deeper, and he, along with Bandy, might end up being a couple of their higher priority, undrafted free agents here at first glance. But look, I've just barely scratched the surface on him as well too.
Yeah. We'll have reports on all these guys. I think Josh is doing Leo Lewis. I forget who everyone's doing right now. I'm going to have a report on Calvin Taylor at some point in the next couple of days. So we'll have reports on all undrafted players to get really familiar with that group.
All right, someone is saying that Albert Breer is reporting something on Winston. Are you seeing and the Steelers? Are you seeing anything on that?
Albert Breer and Winston?
Yeah. Is reporting something about Winston turning down more money from the Steelers. I'm not seeing this off. I wonder if it's something in his blog post or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything on Twitter. Breer, Steelers. Let's see. I'm not seeing anything immediately on Twitter. It might be on NFL Network or on an article or something. Not. We'll have to get back to you on that. I wanted to him and Hall live here on the podcast, or live, whatever you want to call it. Not seeing anything.
Let's see. I'm not.
When was that email submitted?
Just a little while ago, I think. I'm not seeing anything on that yet. But like I said, I'll be surprised because it would really take something super duper creative for them to do something along those lines. I'm not buying it. I would need more than just one, a guy like Breer saying it. I would have to see it backed up a little bit more substantial because, all the reasons that I already mentioned there.
Okay. Yeah, I am not even seeing anything on Breer. I'll look though once we get off the podcast here, but I'm not seeing anything on that report.
Chris Warren writes in, I'm generally pretty happy with the Steelers draft until we went running back at 124. I understand that Connor has injury concerns, but is he capable of eventually being the next guy? No, he gives you the big playability and special teams help, plus the guy seems to block like Dree Archer. We left good interior offensive linemen and nose tackle options on the board. What do you guys think? I think the biggest drawback maybe in spending that fourth round pick on a guy like McFarland is the fact that you probably could have gotten a better nose tackle option there.
Yeah, or a safety option. I mean, even if you want to, tell me to shut up about nose tackle so much, then safety, another position of need that hasn't been addressed, because safety depth is still pretty poor right now. So worth, that's just where my disagreement comes in.
All right, Charles Munger writes in, guys, I think Colbert hasn't done the best of job of asset management with contracts and draft picks. I specifically look at the Ravens front office. They have won the division and maintained draft picks. What does maintain draft picks mean? At the end of the draft, the Ravens haul will set them up for success much greater than the Steelers draft haul. I think we need to be more critical of Colbert's final few years.
I don't know. I think we've been critical of it at times. We've been critical just about the running back situation right now. So I don't know. I mean, I think we balance it pretty well. We're critical when criticism is warranted and needed, I think.
I wonder if he missed some of the Ravens draft picks over the years that haven't, top draft picks that haven't panned out. Shall we read a few of those off?
I'm
here?
Sure they have their list. Yeah, we talked about how bad that 2016 class was and how it's probably the second worst draft class ever under Colbert. So, but then 2017 was a home run, and the jury's still out in some of these more recent classes. So I don't know. I think we've had criticism. I think we've had praise, and I think we've been very fair as much as we can be.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, you're measured by whether or not you win the championship, right?
Mm-hmm. Amen to that.
Let's see if I can get sneak a few. Charles Claypool from Marius, England. Hi, Dave and Alex. I'm Marius from Munich, Germany. Absolutely love the podcast since I started listening to just over a year ago, and I'm a first-time emailer, especially in this crazy times. You posted a lot of highlights of Chase after he was drafted. I thought that in these he made a lot of difficult catches, but I thought his quarterback didn't put him in good situations with inaccurate passes. Would you agree that with a better quarterback, he would have looked better and more yards after the catch? It's always hard to kind of evaluate things. I think you have to evaluate on what he did catch on tape. Here's the thing that continues to stick out to me on Claypool the further I get into his tape. He was thrown to a lot down the field, and obviously the further down the field you're thrown to, the more likely the pass might be uncatchable for whatever reason. If the ball is in his area code, though, I think he does a great job of getting it. There. Now, another thing that stuck out to me, though, too, is they did use him a lot on some quick slants, especially in the red zone, and in other areas on some of those mesh concepts. Coming across the middle where there was a lot of you come across some bad clips on some defense and some flat-footed zone linebackers just watching the train go through, if you will, and him being able to run free. But look, obviously a having a better quarterback won't hurt.
Right. I mean, the quarterback play in Notre Dame wasn't ideal, and I'm sure there were instances where you could say the quarterback hurt him in those moments, but it wasn't so bad that I'm sitting there going, okay, that's going to really alter my perception of him, of Claypool. And if he was a better separator, he probably could do more after the catch if he was getting more separation, but everything he's going to catch is basically contested because he doesn't have the quickness, which is understandable because he's a big guy, but he's just not going to create his own separation. And in that sense, it's going to hurt Yak because he's always going to have a guy right on top of him.
Bo Lawson writes in, swing and miss. Boy, you guys really whiffed on that one. Dave even said you don't want to talk about Claypool.
I know. Well, I did not consider Claypool that heavily at 49, and I stand by that. I'm not going to pretend like I was talking about Claypool all the time. We've talked about him though on the podcast, though.
We just didn't consider him to be in there. We talked about it because a lot of people say, well, why aren't you talking about Claypool? And we always said, okay, we'll talk about Claypool. He was a down-the-field contested catcher. We just didn't view him as I viewed him as a third-round guy, not a second-round guy.
Yeah, I think a lot of people share that sentiment. So I don't know. We're talking about him now. I mean, I don't know what else we're supposed to do right now. We're just talking about who the pick is, and I think we've been fair on that.
So Bo wanted to write in that we both swung and missed on Claypool there, that we didn't want to talk about him, okay? Wes, let's see, that's another one on Claypool. I just wanted to say, after seeing an NBC Sports video breaking down Claypool, I'm sold of him. My question is, can you foresee packages where Claypool lines up as a tight end in the red zone? Not attached.
Mm-hmm. Not with his hand down.
Not with his hand down.
He'll work in the red zone. I guess you're trying to figure out exactly how that will be, because if he's going to get on the field, who are you taking off the field? But like I said, I think early on you're going to see certain packages for him in red zone, maybe some short yardage stuff, and certainly help on special teams.
John, I'm not going to try to pronounce John's last name. Weesire, dear David Alex, great job as always in general, and particularly over the course of the offseason. Your analysis of prospects and drafting process is unmatched. Well, Bo said that it's not that good, John. So you and Bo need to probably get together here and figure this out. While tight end is seemingly now off the radar for the Steelers due to the acquisition of Eric Ebron, coupled with the overall weakness of the class, I found it interesting, though, that it seems the press associated with Adam Troutman has diminished significantly over the past several weeks. It would seem likely he will still be available at pick 49. Whereas this was from 3 days ago. I don't know how this one got mixed in here. Anyway, it appeared that it'd be interesting to see at what point of the draft he goes and where he lands. It seems Komet has clearly become the tight end draft darling. You know what? I still probably would have drafted Troutman over Komet.
Yeah, I think it would have been close, but I think we knew, at least conventionally, that Komet was much likelier to go and be the top tight end off the board, and ultimately he was.
All right, I think we've gone through a good selection of these. Apologies if we did not get to your email. Send it again if we didn't. If you feel like we skipped it or missed it or whatever there. But we're almost at 2 hours on this show. We're not going to do another show. We're not going to have a Wednesday show this week. Give us time to grind some more tape. We'll be back on Friday, talking a little bit more about the undrafted prospects and any other news that has happened. We'll have a Wednesday show if something big breaks. But as of right now, that doesn't look like it's going to be the case. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do on the show and you want to donate to the cause, I don't think Bo's going to donate, Alex.
I don't think so either. Right.
But the rest of you, if you want to, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the PayPal button up right navigational bar. Also, if you want an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the ad-free button up right navigational bar. And for $25 for one calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. So with that, thank you for listening. Thank you for your contributions, your emails, everything that goes along that. Until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.